Okay, this is how you set up Fina to act as your dashboard in your financial cruiser so that the data that you are looking at from your personal finances are just enough to make good decisions. Let's click on Try Fina for free. You're going to either sign up with your email or with your Google account. I'm going to sign up with my Google account. I'm already logged in. And the first thing we're going to do is go to categories. And you're going to see here in the category section quite a bit of categories. And what we need to do is just clear them all out, almost all of them out. And I'll show you which ones we're going to keep. So I'm just going to X out. The little X here is how you delete a category. We want to delete everything. We're going to have to expand some of these. All right. As you can see here, we've cleared out every single category, and the only one that we've left is this one called transfer that's in the group called transfers. Everything else is cleared out. And the reason why we want to do this is, again, because we're trying to only categorize to the extent that we need to so that we're able to make wise choices, wise decisions. All right. In the expenses category, we're going to only put in a few categories. The first one we're going to call spending. And we're going to click on this little convert to group icon. This is the two arrows here on the side. Click the down button here. We're going to call this one fixed lifestyle. We're going to call this category unfixed, worry free, and that's it. That's all we're going to have for spending. And then we're going to click on category, add a new category here. We're going to call this save. Make this a group. Call the first one short term. And the next one a long term save. And then we're going to click on this category here, the add category button here. And we're going to call this one share. This is not going to be a group. This is just going to be a category on its own. Add a new category. We're going to call this reimbursements. And we're going to turn this one into a group. And we're going to call this one emergency fund expense. We're going to call this one an icing fund expense. We're going to call this a share fund expense. And then we're going to call this one an external reimbursement. Okay. Now, with each of these, you could change the emoji that's attached to it, but we're not going to do that right now. So you'll see here, when you're done, you'll have your spending, saving, share, and reimbursements. We're actually going to change this to sharing. Change this to saving. Okay, in income, we're going to only add one category here. We're just going to call it income. And in transfers, we're going to add one category. We're going to call this ignore. That's it. These are the categories that you will need for your dashboard. Now that our categories are set up, the next thing we're going to do is set up what they call a page in Fina. We're going to click on this plus icon here. And we're going to click on this new page here. It's a blank page, and for those of you who are familiar with Notion, this is very similar to a Notion page. If you don't know anything about Notion, that's perfectly fine. What we're going to be doing here is quite simple, and this page will actually act as your dashboard, and also where you do your monthly maintenance. So we're going to rename this and call it dashboard. And the first thing we're going to do is press this slash button here. And when you press the slash button, you'll get options for blocks that you could have appear. Here, what we're going to do is, after pressing the slash, type in category spending summary, and we're going to click that. And it's going to show 0 right now because we have nothing connected to the account. We're going to click on the icon again, and type in, I think it's called accounts. Yeah, current balances of accounts. And again, it's not going to show anything right now because we don't have anything connected. And then the last thing we're going to include is a calculator. That's it. We just need these 3 blocks, and then we can go on over to back to our profile, personal, click on, and we actually are on the accounts page already, and this is where we're going to connect to our accounts. And the best part about Fina, or one of the best parts about Fina, is that it will connect to your bank account securely through a third party using Plaid, which connects to banks securely and pulls in the data without anyone else being able to see it except for you. So you'll go through this process here, click continue, and you can click maybe later, find your bank. My bank is ATB here in Alberta. Log in, and after you've logged in, you're going to select all of the accounts that you've set up in your bank. Now, if you've built a financial cruiser at your bank, that would mean that you have 4 checking accounts. You would have your inbox, you would have your emergency fund account, your icing fund account, your share fund account, and then the last thing you might have, many people do have, is your credit card that is at your bank. You want to connect all 5 of them to Fina. And once that's done, we'll move on to the next step. Okay, we're now in the accounts page where I've loaded some demo data, and the data here is not representative of an entire month's worth of transactions. It's only a part of a month, but I think it'll serve the purposes of this presentation and keep the presentation itself fairly clean. One thing to note before we move forward, if you take a look here on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see this green light. The green light is an indication that all of the accounts have been synced as you like them. If you see it red or flashing, that means that it's doing some things in the process. And if you ever feel like things aren't quite synced up in the way that you want them to be, just refresh the page. Okay, go to the address bar, press enter, refresh the page, and 99% of the time that solves any issues that I have. We're going to go over to transactions here. You'll see all of these transactions have been imported from all of my accounts. Again, these accounts are at my bank. They've been renamed at my bank, and the names have been imported over here. In my transactions, you'll see all of those transactions pulled in, and none of them have been categorized. Green means, of course, that it's inflow, and red means that it's outflow from all of the accounts, from an account. If you click on filters, you're able to filter the transactions that you want to see. You can filter by account, you can filter by name, by merchant, income, expenses, by a number, etc. But for now, what we want to be able to see is every single transaction in all of our accounts. And going through this is quite simple. Remember that we have only a handful of expenses. The first is fixed expenses, which are mostly fixed, unfixed expenses that are largely variable, things like eating out, retail purchases, entertainment. And then we have our sharing, money that we either give monthly to a charitable cause or money that we designate to our share fund through an automated transfer or manual transfer. And also we save. We save for the short term. Anytime we send money to our emergency fund or our icing fund, that's called a short-term save. And if we send money to an investment account, that's called a long-term save. Okay, let's go through this here. I've scrolled down to the bottom because the bottom is where we have our oldest transaction. And then we'll go through this and just categorize this. So heat and hydro would be a fixed expense. Rent, of course, is fixed. Now this is a transfer from the inbox, right? This is money that came from our inbox and was deposited into our share fund. And so we're going to call this just a transfer. We're simply going to call any transfer that is green a transfer. Okay, we have our salary here. We're going to call this income. Insurance company is a fixed expense. A green transfer, we're just going to call a transfer. Property tax is going to be fixed. This is gas at an Esso station, so let's call this fixed. Now this is a transfer to the emergency fund. So if it's red and it's a transfer, then it's going to be depending on where it's going, either a short-term or long-term save. An emergency fund allocation is a short-term save. We're going to go call this fixed. And Safeway is maybe a place that we go to often, and what we want to be able to do is make this something that is recognized by the app as a fixed expense. And so what we're going to do is click on this little 2 arrow icon and say whenever the merchant is Safeway, we want it to be categorized as such. Click Save, and then if we refresh the page and come back to transactions here, you'll see here that this was a Safeway that we categorized as fixed. This is a later Safeway transaction that was automatically categorized as fixed. So the more rules you make, the quicker that this process becomes. All right, this is a charity donation that we've made. So we're going to call this a share. This is a transfer to the share fund. So this is also sharing. This says a direct payment to Wealthsimple, which would be a long-term save. Transfer to an icing fund is also a short-term save, and it's red. Best Buy. Now this was a large purchase. This is an icing fund purchase. Let's say it was a laptop that I bought from Best Buy. So in categories, we don't want to call this fixed or unfixed because this was an icing fund purchase. We want to scroll all the way down to icing fund expense. Click on icing fund expense. All right, this is Muslim emergency relief. This was a one-time donation, let's say, and because it's a one-time donation, we're going to click on categories here. We're not going to call this a share. We're going to call this a share fund expense because this again was a one-time donation that we made, and this will need to be reimbursed from our share fund a little bit later. Marshalls, we're going to call a unfixed worry-free. This is a retail purchase, and retail purchases we generally call unfixed, and that's also the case with Amazon, especially if you don't use Amazon for groceries or things like that. If you're using Amazon for retail purchases that fluctuate quite a bit, you're going to call it an unfixed worry-free expense. Shawarma extravaganza, we're going to call this an unfixed worry-free. And now finally Amazon here, this was a return, let's say, and so what we're going to do is actually categorize this not as an income, not as transfer. We're going to put this right back in the unfixed worry-free category because this needs to count against that category. All right, now if we go through here, we can see everything has been categorized. And we also have some rules and some auto categorization happening. You could do this for all of your transactions, and I don't anticipate that it will take very long the first time, and certainly in months moving forward, once the rules are set up, it'll take even less time. All right, and the final step of our monthly maintenance is going to take place in our dashboard over here. We've already set up these blocks here. We're just going to clear that out. These blocks have already been set out. This has now been populated with the balances of these accounts, these demo accounts, and in your case, your live accounts. And one thing to note about these blocks is you can filter by clicking on this 3 dots here in the corner and click on accounts to filter. So that's actually what we're going to do first. Here in the current balance of accounts, we're going to go over here, and we're only going to show our funds here. So we're going to get rid of the inbox, we're going to get rid of the credit card, and the only things we're going to see are our emergency fund, our icing fund, and our share fund. There we go. And then I'm going to copy and paste this right here. These are the things that we want to fill out at the end of the month just to see how we've done. Remember that we have our speed check and our fuel check, and we'll just go through these each. And what we're going to find is that these blocks here help us answer these questions. So the first thing we're going to do is find out how much income we made. So we'll click on category, click on income, and we'll just write down 5,000 here. All right, the next thing that we want to do is figure out what percent we spent on our fixed income, or rather our fixed expenses. So we'll type in fixed lifestyle here. We'll see that it's 2,500. In our simple calculator, we'll go 2,555 divided by 5,000, which was our income. And you'll see that it's 0.51. Press escape to get rid of that thing that popped up there. So we're going to write in 51%. So some of these numbers are skewed because the data is sort of random here, but in any case, it hopefully illustrates what we're trying to do. Then we're going to go to our unfixed, and we have to find out two things with our unfixed. We got to find out how much we spent with our unfixed worry-free. That's 110. Again, it would be larger if there were more transactions and if we had a full month's worth of data. And we're going to find out, so that's the dollar amount. We're going to find out what the percent is. 110 divided by 5,000, 0.02, which is 2%. For share, we're going to look up sharing. We'll see that we spent 250. So we'll X that out, say 250 divided by 5,000. That's 0.5. Well, that's 0.05, so that's 5%. And then we're going to look at our short-term saving, which is 750. 750. Again, you could do this if you prefer to do it on your own calculator or on your phone, that's fine too. 15%. And our long term is 250. So we already know that's 5%, but we'll do it here anyways. %. Okay, so now we can see that we have in our fixed 51% being spent on our fixed lifestyle expenses, 2% currently on unfixed. Our share is 5%, and our savings is a total of 20%, with 15 going to short term and 5% going to long term. And you want to compare this to your targets. Just by a quick glance, you can see that the fixed is quite high, especially if you don't have a full month's worth of data being represented here. But this gives you a quick glance to see how you're doing. And these are the numbers that you need to know, right? We have the dollar amount with our fixed, or rather, we have our dollar amount with our unfixed, because we want to be able to see how much we spend with our unfixed in general, and also what the percentage is as well. And that unfixed dollar amount we can carry out into the world with us. We can think about how much things cost that are variable when we're making retail purchases, when we're eating out, when we're making entertainment decisions. And we can buy based off of our unfixed allocation, how much we're spending in dollars in unfixed variable expenses. And then what we want to do here is go to our fuel, and just all we have to do with our fuel check is take a look to see what we have here. So in our emergency fund here, according to that, we have 3,500, and here we have 2,450 in our icing fund, and then in our share fund we have $500. And there you have it. This is your monthly speed check, and then your monthly fuel check. And then at the end of October, you do the exact same thing. You can in fact just copy and paste this. Change this to October, clear these numbers out, and go through the process again. Now, there's one final thing that we need to do at the end of the month, and that is to go back here to our profile, click on categories, go to our reimbursements, and we want to hover over any of these emergency fund, icing fund, and share fund expenses. This $850 came out of our credit card. We need to transfer $850 from our icing fund to our inbox, and we need to do the same with our share fund. So we need to transfer $100 from our share fund to our inbox so that we can pay for the one-time donation as well as the one-time large purchase. And that's it. Once you've done that, you have completed a monthly maintenance.